Framework K case.
Yep.
I'm assuming no evidence.
No. Is everyone good? They say we should have a topic policy action, but they cannot explain why we can't resist the space inside the space and why. That doesn't mean there was no articulation and that coming out of the block. You can extend Bergen here the demands for a topical advocacy, the reduction of troops, and force the normative expectation of peacekeeping feminine, forcing this no more debaters. The political system is masculine, doesn't recognize feminized value without the burial. We are a prerequisite to policy action or evaluating framework. It's also a problematic norm that they have conceded in the debate community. Their interpretation forces everyone to adhere to forced definition of what debate should be like. This reinforces shaming of people who and the silencing of voices they don't agree with, which creates discursive violence in the space. And they can see the education terms which they force everyone to form and seeing normative styles, diverse creativity, intellectual innovation, new forms of knowledge, allowing each individual choose how they participate, force debaters to have interactions based on subjectivity instead of being just objects they are able to express themselves without being shamed or being told to get their backs back to their societally prescribed position. To extend the counter-interpretation of the debate should still be about the prior question of whether or not the resolution is a good starting point for the space. That was the one they never tested why. That was not a good discussion of how we need to have the discussion of that's a starting point argument of why what we should actually begin debate centered around accepting their interpretation devalues these alternative methods of scholarship and endorses the master's partial view of the world. That's a sequence of questions they have not that they've ignored. The resolution of bad starting point because it forced debaters to appeal to the norm that other people have created to debate. You can classify the fluid identity side from the one. Okay, go on. So. You can extend they conceded that the negative method is one to displace ethics. They're literally asking us to displace our ethics, disembody ourselves from our ethics and put them onto the state. That creates a world in which we never have to take accountability or personal accountability for what we do inside the space or what we do outside the world. You can also extend the judgment to set the framework leads to forcing other people to just please other individuals in the big community and learning to appeal to the norm. That mindset is always really exclusionatory to people, and that is forced down on different bodies differently. They also conceded that this debate space is more real world than anything else outside. We need to talk about what is real to us. Anything else? I think I'm good.
Just like the whole what happened in cross-sex, just how it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so literally, just as we've seen in cross-sex like this, literally doesn't make any sense. On one floor, they're telling us we should defend and work inside the state, and another one, they're trying to tell us to abandon it and work to listen to these ghosts. But that would cause a rejection of the state. There's no they're literally forcing us into a double turn where we are forced to argue on two different points that completely contradict each other. There's also no reason why we're not already working inside the system by debating inside this debate space. Go to K. This is not unique. The norms are already invisible in the debate space and the status quo. The ghosts of the debate community are already ghosts of old ideology. The new racism and the subtle sexism that we see all across the debate community, these are all ghosts of old normative ideologies. The burial is a way that we can actually begin to take those down. We actually do recognize that these are just ghosts rehashing out of old ideologies. The burial is a method you can cross by the Bergen here, which talks about how we are able to gain agency and able to turn these things as we learn to bury these mentalities that harm us. You can extend the perm to both here because we can continue to recognize ghosts before the burial because we recognize that the resolution is where these things come from. They literally said that we need to recognize where these things come from. The 1AC did identify that, and also they're saying everyone has ghosts. We can't make those kinds of individual judgments for them. That turns their K. They said they don't feel at all, but they still links. There's no explanation of how this actually happens. You can only assume that they're assuming that when you vote neg, that they actually have a magical method for dealing with these ghosts. They don't. They have not proved why they are Ghostbusters inside this round. We need to make them prove why they ghost bust inside this round here of you default act because we have proved that the starting point question goes first.
Do something.
Yeah.
You said perm.
Yeah. Oh, and also they conceded that we are already putting our ethics on ourselves and that we are directing our ethics to the other already. So we are already an example of doing this K. We are not attempting to banishing the ghosts. There are more ghosts than we can address. Again, that's what Amanda said in the OAC. And there's also a lot of intersections that could never be explained by ghosts. They conceded that as well. And you can also extend the sequence of arguments here. That mean if we win that the resolution is bad, they should have been prepared to defend that the resolution was good, or they cannot ever solve the affirmative.
Also, they never do a warranted analysis of why ghosts are root cause.
Also, they never do a warranted analysis of why the ghosts are the root cause or how they can ever get around to solving that root cause. We recognize just, you can cross my explanation from above, which talks about how those norms in the debate community are already ghosts of previous ideologies. This is non-unique and there's no reason why the negative solves it either.
Go to case and just extend how case works.
So the burial needs to be performed in this space because this is a way that we can rupture the status quo debate space in the way in which these things happen inside the base. We have had many coaches and judges come up to us and tell them that we have personally changed the debate space they said we recognize there were things in the 1AC that I personally was responsible for and upheld, and I'm sorry. And we have another coach totally put that. Yeah, so you have coaches come and tell us those things. We are not a moral high ground. We're just saying that this is a good methodology for each individual to come into this space and begin to bury the norms that define them and say that these are not allowed to define them anymore. We do solve our case because of the Bergen evidence, which talks about why. Yes, this is in the context of years ago, but when we re-perform this burial inside this space, it causes those same reactions as we can build coalitions and create a movement. We are not forced outing people. We are not forced outing. The 1AC just gave examples of what we have personally experienced. We understand that those personal experiences will look different for everyone. We're not mapping anyone. We create a space for other people to do that.
All the arguments.
All our arguments are predicated on the fact that we are speaking for others, but we recognize it's self-biography, and we aren't asking you to sacrifice, but to redefine yourself. They said that some people don't want to bury you. We're not saying everyone must bury. People should have the option to choose in the resolution. Make sure that people don't have that option. They said that they don't change anything about the responsible for drug private ends. We want people to reorient in this space, and that we say that should come first.
Before we start prep, am I allowed to use the restroom, or do you want me to wait till after prep?
I think you should do it after prep.
Okay, cool.